We are in week 2 of our 8-week series on the 5 agreements. Last week we did the overview and we're beginning the agreements this week. But each week is independent and all of them will be out on our website, on our YouTube channel, and also on Facebook Live. So in this series, we're learning to break the dysfunctional agreements that we made with ourselves when we were growing up and accept a new set of beliefs that allows us to live from a place in which love for ourselves and for others is the ultimate goal. The first agreement is the first step on this journey, and that agreement is be impeccable with your word. So last week I asked you, are you willing to examine what you believe? Today we're going to look at the big challenges of being impeccable with our word. To be impeccable with our word requires us to recognize that our word has creative power, that our word reflects our own reality, and it reflects our own amount of self-love. So first, the question of the week. What is the one choice that you can make today to stay in integrity with your word, always using it to spread truth and love? One more time. What is the one choice you can make today to stay in integrity with your word, always using it to spread truth and love? Our words are very powerful. It seems like this agreement would be an easy one. Be impeccable with your word. After all, it's just things we say. And yet, this is often the hardest of all the agreements. In his book, Ruiz wrote, "The human mind is like fertile ground where seeds are continually planted. The seeds are opinions, ideas, and concepts. What is important is to see which kind of seed our mind is fertile for and to prepare it to receive the seeds of love." So let's talk for a minute about the power of our own word and the seeds that we're planting that create the reality of what we know, remembering that our words are our creative power. We use words to communicate. Whatever the language we learn as children, we make agreements about what certain words mean and what they relate to. If I said I had a beautiful red apple for breakfast this morning, I bet each of you could picture that part of my breakfast. We agree what the words red and apple mean to us. And the same is true with all of our words. I'd like to invite you to remember a time in the past when someone you trusted, like a parent or a teacher or relative, told you that you were beautiful or smart or talented, or perhaps the opposite, that you were dumb or incompetent in some way. If you believed them, then you accepted that belief as one of the agreements that you made with yourself. Words are used to praise and unfortunately also to degrade or belittle, which is why words are so important. Ernest Holmes, in The Power of an Idea, wrote, "Let us know that our word does not return to us void. It is the instrument through which the presence and the power of God act. Let us honor our word, believe in it, and have complete confidence in its manifestation through divine action." If you read chapter 2 in the book, you discovered, if you didn't already know it, that impeccable means without sin. And in religious science, we know that sin just means missing the mark. So being impeccable with your word means that you are not missing the mark with your word. Let's take a look at what that might mean in our everyday lives. When someone asking you how you're feeling and you're feeling a bit tired, do you have to respond that I'm feeling tired in order to be impeccable with your word? Absolutely not. What if you responded, I could use a bit more energy? First of all, that is the truth, and it tells the universe that you want more energy, which you then get. I invite you to try this the next time you're feeling a bit tired and just see what happens. Another way of looking at our words so that we don't miss the mark is to realize that our words are a reflection of our own reality. What happens when you get angry with someone and use words that are angry ones? Who are you really hurting? The truth is, you are only hurting yourself. The other person might be the target, so to speak, but your body feels that anger, and your beingness is changed from calm to anger. You lose a sense of the reality of you as a divine being. Your humanness shows up and you miss the mark because you forgot that that other person is also a divine being. In A Course in Miracles, lesson 78, we read, "Let miracles replace all grievances." The Course explains that our grievances hide the light of the world from us. They allow us to forget that all that really matters is love. So when we let go of our grievances, when we let go of any anger, and are just loving with our words, we see miracles. I remember a time when one of my prayer partners called, and I answered the phone in, let's say, less than a wonderful voice. I was really upset with an incident that had just taken place, and I was really angry and seething. Because we had agreed that hiding our feelings or doing a spiritual bypass was really not effective or useful in our human bodies, he lovingly suggested that he give me 20 minutes and he would call back. Now, I wasn't going to do that spiritual bypass, say everything is fine when it's not. So I spent that time walking around my house, shouting my grievances at the walls. Gratefully, I live alone. The miracle was that when he called back, I was ready to be in a more loving state and ask for prayers to let go of that grievance, to spread love and be in integrity with what I know is the truth, that everything is either love or a call for love. And I felt so much better. This is one of those small miracles that happen when we are willing to recognize the power of our word to express what we're feeling and the power that loving and kind words can have over ones of anger and grievance. And being impeccable with your word doesn't just apply to others. Are you aware that when you judge yourself harshly or in any unkind way, like shaming or blaming or being fearful, that you're using your word against yourself? This is definitely not being impeccable with your word. When you use your self-talk to get down on yourself in any way, you are also missing the mark, not being loving to yourself. Ernest Holmes in Creative Mind wrote, "The best way to arrive at the highest consciousness is to have great faith in the willingness and the ability of life to do all for us by working through us." In this chapter, Dom Miguel Ruiz tells a lot of stories about people and how they use their words for revenge or for hatred or to create war from fear, as Hitler did, and as we see taking place on our planet right now. What I want to emphasize is that being impeccable with your word means using your words for love and truth. It means saying what you mean and meaning what you say. And being impeccable with our word is essentially for ourselves to be totally aware of what we're saying, both to ourselves and to others. We have learned in some ways to lie to ourselves, or sometimes not to tell ourselves the whole truth. We believe things about ourselves that are not the truth. We tell ourselves we're too old or too slow or don't know enough or not rich enough. We find ways to hold ourselves back by not believing in our own goodness or our own creativity or our own greatness. My friends that have known me for a while know that I used to say all the time that I wasn't creative. Why? Because I believed a second grade teacher whom I trusted when she told me I was a terrible artist. I knew the pigs in my scene were the best I could do, and I equated being an artist with being creative. So even though when I would pronounce that I wasn't creative and my friends would laugh at me and tell me it wasn't true, I held on tight to that belief, to that agreement I made with myself when I was 7 years old. I couldn't see past it. I've since let go of it, but I have to confess it took me about 50 years and a lot of soul searching. When we're impeccable with our word, we know that opinions are powerful, and we learn to use our opinions only in ways that come from love. We use our word to spread love. My daddy loved me dearly, and he always told me I could do anything that I put my mind to. I trusted him, and so I was convinced I was smart. And I lived with that belief. So I became a person who knew that I could make things happen. I took risks, I took jobs that were a real big stretch for me, but I believed I'd be able to do it because I made that agreement with myself way back when I was little. In his book, Ruiz says this: you can measure the impeccability of your word by your level of self-love. How much you love yourself and how you feel about yourself are directly proportional to the quality and to the integrity of your word. When you're impeccable with your word, you feel good, you feel happy, and at peace. This is a huge statement. You measure the impeccability of your word by your level of self-love. When we learn to be impeccable with our word, with ourselves, we also can see more clearly the words of others. We learn to hear everything as love or as another person's call for love, rather than taking on their anger or their unkind words about us or about someone else. There's a number of questions that help you look at how impeccable you are with your word. Where in your life have you allowed yourself to take risk? Where have you held yourself back? What agreements have you accepted about yourself? Where have you allowed someone else's words to change whom you could be? Those are very interesting questions, and I invite you to spend a little bit of time just thinking about them. And before we leave, I want to leave you with a few tips to embrace as you practice being impeccable with your word. And so that you would have the list, there's a link to them on our website at cslsoutheastla.org. Here are the tips. Realize the power of your word. Your word is the power that you have to create. It's a gift that comes directly from God. Seek to know the truth. When you hear an opinion and believe it, you make an agreement and it becomes part of your belief system. The only thing that can break this agreement is to make a new one based on truth. Only the truth has the power to set you free. Speak with integrity. Say only what you mean and avoid using your word to speak against yourself or to gossip about other people. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. Let go of self-judgment and blame. Being impeccable, you take responsibility for your actions, and you don't judge or blame yourself or others for anything. Self-judgment and blame are ways that you miss the mark. Replace fear with love. The human mind is like a fertile ground where seeds are continually being planted. When you're impeccable with your word, your mind is no longer fertile ground for words that come from fear or from blame or from any other negative emotion. Your mind is only fertile for the words that come from love. Cultivate faith. To have great faith is to have great power because your intent, your will, is undivided. When your word is not dissipated by doubt, the power of your word is even stronger. Release the need to be right. When you believe something, you assume you're right, and you may even destroy relationships to defend your position. Let go of the need to defend your position. Come from a place of love. Manifest your true intentions. No matter what language you speak, your intention manifests through your word. What you dream, what you feel, and who you are, really, are all manifested through your word. Create a beautiful dream. Your word can create the most beautiful dream, or it can destroy everything around you. Impeccability of your word only creates beauty, love, and heaven on earth. Express your love. Impeccability of the word can be measured by your level of self-love. If you love yourself, you will express that love in your interactions with others, and that action produces a like reaction. Become a magician. All the magic you possess is based on your word. You can cast spells all the time with your opinions, and you either can put a spell on someone with your word, or you can release someone from a spell. Use only loving spells. Enjoy heaven on earth. Impeccability of your word can lead you to personal freedom, success, and abundance. You can attain the kingdom of heaven from this one agreement. So I invite you to consider how you might apply some of these tips and learn to be more impeccable with your word. So in summary, decide this week to be impeccable with your word, with yourself and with others. And remember, Our words are powerful. We manifest our life through our word. Impeccable means without sin. And we miss the mark when we use our words against ourselves or anybody else. Remember, everything is either love or a call for love. Use your word to spread love and truth. Say what you mean and mean what you say, kindly and lovingly. Notice what agreements you might have adopted about yourselves or others that are not the truth or are not loving, and release them. And use the tips available to download from our website. So here's your affirmation for the week. How is it I so easily and willingly make the choice today to stay in integrity with my word, always using it to spread truth and love? So make a conscious choice this week to notice the agreements that you've accepted about yourself that perhaps limit you or hold you back in any way. And remember, you can measure the impeccability of your word by your level of self-love. Let's pray. We take a deep, nourishing breath, and we just connect with that divine being, the God that is love and joy and peace and ease, the God that we see in the beauty of all the spring flowers that are popping up, in the beauty of the majestic mountains, in the depth of the oceans, the God that we see in everything as we look around. All that the divine is lives right within each of us. We are expressions of the divine, so within us is all of that love and wisdom and peace and ease and grace. And what I know to be the truth is that each of us is on this spiritual path and willing to accept this first agreement of being impeccable with our word, willing to notice how we miss the mark of not always being loving, how we miss the mark of assuming that what we think is reality may not be reality for someone else. So what I know to be the truth is that you heard something today that touched your heart in a special way, and you can use that message to learn to be more in integrity with your word, to be impeccable with it. So I am so grateful. I'm so grateful for the time we've had together. I'm grateful for the way this community supports each other in moving into deeper spiritual territory. It's from that gratitude that I release these words into the law of mind, spirit, and action, knowing the truth that right where we are, God is. I know that the divine has already said yes. It's all that ever gets said. When we ask, it's always given. So knowing that, I just release it. I say amen, and we can affirm it together. And so it is. And I want to take this opportunity to once again thank everybody for their donations, to tell you that we are looking for a place that will be opening back up at the end of September. And I am so excited about being able to have in-person services, and we will continue to broadcast on Facebook Live. So for now, enjoy our offertory song.